Hey guys, okay, so in the last part of this set of videos, which is this problems with pronouns, this is part two, we talked about what pronouns are. They're words that replace nouns. They're also sometimes called reference. We talked about what antecedents are. Antecedents are the words that pronouns replace. We talked about some general types of errors. We talked about pronoun antecedent errors in general. And now we're going to talk a little bit how do we address these. So it is pretty common sense. The first thing you're going to want to do is identify your antecedents. And you want to identify the person, number, and gender, and the case if necessary, but that comes up a little less often. And then you want to identify the pronouns that are replacing the antecedents and find the same things. And then just make sure that they match. And that's really all there is to fixing pronoun antecedent errors. So now let's look at an example. So we have, this is pretty common, a student who wants to pass should do all of their homework. Well, student is third person singular and it's neuter. There is third person plural. My brain blinked for a second. So this is plural, this is singular. So we need to make them either both singular or both plural. So if we made them both singular, a student who wants to pass should do all of his or her homework. So that makes it singular. Singular, singular. Students who want to pass should do all of their homework. That makes it plural. Students is plural, there is plural, now they match. So that's really all you have to do. As I said earlier, there can be some tricky situations with indefinite pronouns, and so we'll talk about those in the next slide. This is an example of one that's correct. So President Lincoln delivered his Gettysburg Address in 1863. This is singular and masculine. This is singular and masculine. We're good. So when you're looking at indefinite pronouns, remember that list I gave you earlier? It can be a good idea to check the pronoun first rather than the antecedent first because you're not always going to have an antecedent. So nobody wants his or her name slandered. Well, nobody is a singular indefinite pronoun, but it's not replacing anything. His or her is now replacing this pronoun, so we want to make sure these two match. So we go back to that list, we'd find nobody is singular indefinite, so then we would go, okay, so we need a singular pronoun here, so nobody wants his or her name slandered. Same with each. Each is only one individual. So it needs to be, it's a singular indefinite pronoun, so we need singular pronouns replacing it. Neither, it can only be one. So it has to be singular. One, well, one by definition is one. Now this sentence is tricky because your temptation would be one of the women put their briefcase under the seat because women is plural. But women is not the subject of this sentence. One is. And her is not referring to all of the women. It is only referring to one of the women. So we would want to make sure that her matched one. Here's some examples with some plural indefinite pronouns that are functioning as antecedents. So here, few has to be plural. It's more than one, so this needs to be plural. Both has to be plural, so this has to be plural. Several, it's more than one, it has to be plural. So here, these, they, and there will be plural as well. So that brings us to pronoun reference errors. And if you remember, pronoun reference errors occur when it's unclear to what the pronoun refers, normally to which antecedent it refers to. Sometimes this is because their antecedent is missing. Sometimes it is because there is more than one possible antecedent. So for example, near the end of the book, Odysseus and Telemachus take their revenge on the suitor harassing his wife. Well, who does the his refer to here? Is it Odysseus or Telemachus? We don't know. So to make it clear, we would indicate which it is. I believe the suitor is Odysseus. It's been a while since I read the Odyssey, but so to fix it, we might say near the end of the book, Odysseus and Telemachus take their revenge on the suitor harassing Odysseus's wife. Or we could use Odysseus's wife's name. I think it was Penelope. Near the end of the book, Odysseus and Telemachus take their revenge on the suitor harassing Penelope. So these problems occur when a reference could refer to more than one stated noun, where the reference is implied but not stated. They also can happen when the pronoun is too far from the antecedent. Normally you want to keep your pronouns and antecedents within 10 words of each other. So to avoid ambiguity, it helps to read the sentence aloud, but you probably will know what you meant. So that can make these really hard to identify. So it can be helpful to have a friend read it or have me read it so that to help identify to whom the pronoun is referring. If you have multiple people of the same gender, you may want to change one of the pronouns back to the noun to which it refers, because that often creates a lot of confusion. So let's look at this example. The friendly banter between Hamlet and Horatio eventually provokes him to change that his worldview has changed. Well, is it Hamlet or Horatio whose worldview has changed? We don't really know from this sentence. As it turns out, it is Hamlet. So let's go in and fix that. The friendly banter between Hamlet and Horatio eventually causes Hamlet to change his view of the world. Implied pronoun references occur when a situation kind of gives you information, but you never state the antecedent. So, for example, every afternoon my brothers cycle home from school and leave them in the driveway. Well, we can tell from the context that what the brothers are probably leaving in the driveway is the bicycles. But the bicycles are never stated. So grammatically what it's saying is every afternoon my brothers cycle home from school and leave each other, the brothers, in the driveway. So to fix it, what we would do is we would say what they're leaving in the driveway. Every afternoon my brothers cycle home from school and leave their bikes in the driveway. And then that fixes the problem. So to avoid these, you want to make sure that each pronoun replaces a specifically referenced noun or indefinite pronoun. When in doubt, just replace it with the noun. It's also good to know that when you're talking about people, in general, you want to use who, whom, and whose. And when you're talking about things, you want to use that and which. So now let's talk a little bit about pronoun cases. This is the part that I think a lot of students find the most confusing, which is why I put it last. Even though I've been kind of referencing them throughout, I wanted to kind of wait on these until you kind of got a feel for the other stuff. So actually, let's stop this video here, and then I will start in with pronoun cases in the next one. I'll be right back.